World War I, also known as the Forgotten War, was undoubtedly a horrific experience for all. The same is true for author Ulrich Maria Remarque, a young German soldier who fought in World War I. His biography, All Quiet on the Western Front, unveils some of the forgotten tragedies through his narration of what life on the Western Front was like during this time period. His book is a worldwide favorite, not only for its interesting plot, but also for its valuable insight on what life for the Germans was like, as well as its lasting impact on society. The story primarily takes place on the battlefields of Eastern Germany. However, the beginning of the book highlights the process of protagonist Paul Baumer enlisting with his good friends Albert Kropp, Franz Muller, and Ludwig Benn into the German army at the young age of 20 years old. They decided to join the militia after their school teacher vividly romanticized what the life of a soldier at war was like. The boys soon found out that soldier life would not be as wonderful as it was depicted. Throughout the novel, Ulrich explains what life on the battlefield is far different than life back home, and he constantly compares the front with typical German civilian life. Paul mainly remains on the front lines for the majority of the book, and by the end of the novel, the life on the front has completely changed his life and the life of his friends, and his personal sense of identity. The main characters of the novel, as highlighted earlier, are Paul Baumer, Albert Kropp, Kaczynski, also nicknamed Kat, Muller, Chauden, Himmelstoch, Kemmerich, and Berger, and we're going to be briefly discussing each of them. The protagonist of the novel, Paul Baumer, the young German soldier and main narrator of the book. Paul is a round and dynamic character, as he is seen changing throughout the entirety of the novel. Albert Kropp is a main character in the novel and is another German soldier who fights in the same regiment as Paul. Kat is another complex character that is seen developing through the story, making him both round and a dynamic character. Kaczynski, also named Kat, is yet another soldier who serves along Paul in the novel. However, these two are extremely close friends who go through thick and thin for each other. Kropp is also seen making extreme growth and change in the book, which means he adds to the list of both round and dynamic characters. Muller, Chauden, Himmelstoch, Kemmerich, and Berger are all more soldiers on the front lines. However, they do not experience the same type of growth, making them flat and static characters. Additionally, there is no direct antagonist in the novel. Instead, countries like France, Russia, the United States, the United Kingdom, Italy, and Japan are all enemies of Germany during World War I, making them the primary antagonists of the book. Despite the obvious conflict of the novel, World War I, there's another major internal conflict within the text, which is found inside of the protagonist, Paul Baumer. This internal conflict specifically appears after Paul returns from his leave, where he got to take a break from war and revisit his hometown and family. Paul often pondered how normal people can live completely ordinary lives and still fill their lives with meaning. Paul is conflicted whether he would like to live in this way as an ordinary citizen or find his purpose in life as a soldier, spending each day doing something that matters. This is highlighted in the quote, "When I see them here in their rooms, in their offices, about their occupations, I feel an irresistible attraction in it. I would like to be here too and forget the war, but it also repels me. It is so narrow. How can that fill a man's life? He ought to smash it into bits. How can they do it while out in the front the splinters are winning over the shell holes and the star shells go up? The wounded are carried back on waterproof sheets, and the comrades crouch in their trenches. They are different men here, and men I cannot properly understand, whom I envy and despise." Quote. For a moment, Paul longs to be a part of a peaceful, simple society, even if it is just temporarily. The primary setting of the novel is the rural terrain of Germany, which greatly influences the text. And this is where the German soldiers spend all their time fighting. With only a slight change in environment for the soldiers, the storyline of the book could have differed drastically. Throughout the novel, Ulrich Maria Remarque emphasizes the comradeship soldiers on the Western Front share with each other. He writes, quote, "At once, a new warmth flows through me. These voices, these quiet words, these footsteps in the trench behind me, at all recall me at a bound. They are more to me than life, these voices. They are more to me than motherliness, more than fear. They are the strongest, most comforting thing there is anywhere. They are the voices of my comrades." End quote. This quote was my all-time favorite section out of the entire book because, despite the tragedies of war, Paul finds comfort in the simple footsteps of his comrades. Although the novel, All Quiet on the Western Front, and The Scarlet Letter are drastically different books, they do share a few key parallels. Both books represent the recurring theme of internal conflict. All Quiet on the Western Front, as mentioned earlier, highlights Paul's internal conflict, and it seems that the longer Paul survives at war, the worse he feels about life outside of it. It's almost as if his mind has been reprogrammed to soldier life. Arthur Dimmesdale, on the other hand, struggles with the internal conflict of his sin and his constant state of guilt. Although these are extremely different struggles in both characters, both of the characters in the novel possess an internal struggle they deal with throughout the book. All Quiet on the Western Front also exhibits various examples of internal conflict, not necessarily with guilt, rather a constant contemplation of how they are defined as being soldiers. Both characters in these books possess qualities such as their feelings of alienation and their suppression of emotions, but they differ in a few ways, specifically how they suffer, because Paul suffers from the battlefield, while Arthur suffers from his sin of adultery. The boots are a major symbol seen in the novel, as they represent the death of a comrade. Throughout the book, various characters die in the war and pass their nice boots down to the next living soldier so they can have the nicer pair. This is a key example of a symbol where the boots serve as a metaphor of death and a constant reminder of the fallen. The biggest motif seen in the novel is the normality of war and the futility that comes with fighting on the front. It is seen when Remarque writes, quote, "When a man has seen so many dead, he cannot understand any longer why there should be so much anguish over a single individual," end quote. This is a dominant motif emphasized throughout the text, explaining the dehumanizing impact war has on the soldiers, as well as the psychological numbness that soldiers face with the constant normalization of death one faces during the war. The historical and cultural context of German society during this time period greatly impact the text since it is written about German soldiers during a devastating global conflict that occurred between 1914 and 1918. The novel is a reflection of this worldwide devastation, as seen on multiple occasions in the text. The text represents a fairly secular worldview for a few key reasons. Primarily, there is no direct distinction of a god, nor are there any specific actions that one can apply in a Christian worldview. Additionally, many characters do things in the book that would be considered sins to many Christians, such as adultery, stealing, murder, and various others, which are all reasons one should assume the text is written under a secular worldview. Overall, the novel, All Quiet on the Western Front, describes the years of vivid horrors Paul Baumer and his close friends face while fighting on the German front lines. The book details the emotional toll war takes on the soldiers, highlighting key themes such as loyalty, alienation, and the psychological numbness caused by the constant exposure to death. The book overall, I thought, was fantastic, and I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to be able to spend time reading it this semester. Thank you.